Hello.
Muhammad Ihsan from 10 Science 7, absen number 26.
My name is Mosha from 10 Science 7, absent number 23.
My name is Larasati and I'm from 10 Science 7, absent number 29.
My name is Wahyu. I'm from 10 Science 7, number absent 35.
And we are from
16 Senior High School.
In this video, we will present to you a historical recount example
about Apollo 11, as known as the first moon landing.
Keep on watching.
Apollo 11. Apollo 11 was the first flight to send people to the moon. It was done by NASA, the American Space Group. It went up to space on July 16 of 1969, carrying 3 astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. On July 20 of 1969, Armstrong and Aldrin became the first humans to land on the moon, while Collins stayed in orbit around the moon. The flight was part of the space race. It finished the plan set by John F. Kennedy in 1961 to land a man on the moon and return him safely to the Earth before the 1960s ended.
Going to and from space. Millions of people around the world view the flights of Apollo 11 on television. When the rocket was sent to space, it was a worldwide event. Richard Nixon, who was then president, watched it from the White House as the rocket went up.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Power clear. We got a roll program. Plus 30 seconds.
A Saturn V rocket took flight from the Kennedy Space Center in America.
About 2 hours after leaving the Earth. The passenger module departed the main rocket. The passenger module had 2 main parts. The first one was the Apollo Command and Service module called Columbia, and the second one was the Apollo Lunar module called Eagle. Columbia was the spaceship that stayed in space, and Eagle was the moon landing spaceship.
3 days later, the team entered a lunar orbit or orbit around the moon. A day later, the Eagle went away from Columbia. The Eagle landed safely on the moon with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin inside. During the landing, there were several problems with the computers. To land safely, Armstrong had to fly the Eagle himself. They landed with only 25 seconds of fuel left.
Events on the moon. The first thing Buzz Aldrin did upon touchdown was to pray. He did not reveal his plan to do this because someone had just made a lawsuit to stop astronauts from doing religious things in space. Armstrong became the first human to walk and speak on the moon's surface. The first words he said were,
"One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind."
For the next 2.5 hours, Aldrin and Armstrong took notes, pictured, and made holes get more rock. The landing were watched by over 6 million people on Earth, using the very big radio telescope in Australia. They did many experiments. For example, the collecting of moon rocks and dust. An American flag was set up and photographed on the moon. Before doing that, President Richard Nixon did a telephone call to them. President Nixon in the White House spoke of the pride of the American people and said, "This certainly has to be a most historic telephone call ever made."
Leaving the moon and returning to Earth. After finishing their work, Armstrong and Aldrin returned to the Eagle and slept for about 7 hours before they started to leave. While Aldrin broke the circuit breaker in engine starter, also Armstrong left so many things on the moon. There are an American flag, a few experiments, a golden feather, a logo of Apollo 11, and some bronze coins honoring Yuri Gagarin and Vladimir Komarov. He also left a sign from the human race. The sign reads,
"Here, men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. It came in peace for all mankind."
On July 24, the three astronauts returned to Earth and were immediately placed into a quarantine or kept away from other people, in case they brought back some disease from the moon. They stayed in quarantine for 3 weeks. When they got out, the men were heroes around the world. They had dinner with President Nixon, a parade in New York City, and another one in Chicago. The three were also on many television shows. Don't forget to leave a like, comment for this video.
Goodbye!